welcome to the DR Sports Transfer Show, where we're going to be covering the latest news, rumours and everything else from the football world. Is your club going to get an Ornstein bomb? How many here we goes are we going to hear from Fabrizio Romano this January? Make sure to stay tuned every weekday for all the latest football news here on DR Sports. Yes, everybody, welcome back to DR Sports. My name is Dylan and I am here to bring you the Transfer Show, where I'm going to be breaking down the transfer news that's happening every single day across the Premier League and across Europe, to hear what you should be looking out for every morning in the transfer window. Today, Wednesday, 21st of January, I'm about to say something that I didn't really ever think I would say, which is Ruben Loftus-Cheek to Manchester United. So, the story on this, according to TalkSport, is that Ruben Loftus-Cheek, or as we all know, the Chelsea Academy graduate, the guy who was at Chelsea was fantastic. Crystal Palace was great as well, but he's now at AC Milan. Apparently, Ruben Loftus-Cheek has been offered to Manchester United by AC Milan, as a former Chelsea midfielder is looking to make a return to the Premier League and is struggling for minutes with the Italian giants in the Serie A. So yeah, as TalkSport has said, the talks are apparently only exploratory, if I've said that word right, but Loftus-Cheek is keen to make a return to England and potentially to play at Old Trafford. United are looking to sign a midfielder on loan to bolster their squad and improve their chances of Champions League qualification. A loan move could work for both parties, with Loftus-Cheek being given the chance to reignite his career in England and United potentially bringing in a player with Premier League experience who can get around the pitch easily. This could be a very interesting move for Man United because, as we all know, they're moving back to a 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, 4-4-2-ish formation under Michael Carrick. We saw how it went in the Manchester derby a few days ago when they beat them 2-0, but obviously Man City have since then been smashed by Bodo Glimt as well last night at the Champions League. So maybe the win wasn't as amazing as it looked at first. But regardless, United need a new midfielder. There's Ugarte is being linked with a move away consistently. Galatasaray, they've rejected a proposal from Ajax. Casemiro can't play. We saw Casemiro can't play 90 minutes every single week at the moment. So they may need new extra legs in midfielder. United were known to be interested in Conor Gallagher in the summer. He's now gone to Spurs. Spurs have finally won their first game in don't know how long when they beat Borussia Dortmund last night, which I'm sure Abby will be happy about. But Ruben Loftus-Cheek to Manchester United, only exploratory for now. Ben Jacobs came out the other day and said they have been in talks recently with a surprise midfielder, with someone, an undisclosed midfielder. We assume that it's going to be this guy, but we'll see how it goes. Because United do need a midfielder, but they've said many times they're only going to sign someone this month if it's someone that's right for them. But sticking with United and midfielders, we covered yesterday that Noah Siddiqui, the Sunderland 21-year-old midfielder, is reportedly on their radar, but apparently, according to The Sun, Sunderland have no intention of selling him to Manchester United this month. And speaking of Borussia Dortmund, according to the Mirror, Niko Kovac, their current manager, has emerged as a new name on Manchester United's shortlist to be their next permanent manager, because Michael Carrick will be leaving once this season ends, well, most likely. And Niko Kovac reportedly on their list, according to the Mirror, but their top two names remain England's Thomas Tuchel and Marseille's Roberto De Zerbi as their two top targets. Now, Tuchel to United, personally, I don't know if that's going to happen because I don't know if he'll be able to concede the power that a head coach has rather than a manager, whereas De Zerbi may be more willing to work on that. But again, the United managerial situation is something that probably won't pick up until March, until April, when the decision needs to be made and United know if they're getting, or more likely to know if they're getting Champions League or not. Then on the topic of Marseille, Ethan Nwaneri, as we all know, is due to travel to the French city today, Wednesday, to sign his deal, do his medical and everything with Marseille before becoming a new Marseille player for the rest of the season. Now, I've got to give Andrea Berta and Arsenal a lot of credit for this deal because they've done something which I think is very, very, very smart. And admittedly, something I've not seen too often. I might be mistaken. It might be more common. But what they've done is they've engineered a sizable fee for Marseille to pay that will reduce depending on how often the 18-year-old plays. So Arsenal want him playing games. That's why they've picked Marseille. They feel that the Italian manager and their style of play and the opportunities in the squad are perfect for Ethan. Obviously, France is a very physical league, probably second most physical league in Europe after the Premier League. So it'd be good for him to, continue to get more acclimatized to physicality and everything. But, the England Youth International will hopefully be playing a load of minutes for Arsenal. That's what Arsenal are hoping. So giving them an incentive, giving Marseille an incentive to pay less the more he plays. It's a good deal. I think it's a great deal. But moving on, Aston Villa. There's a lot of Aston Villa news that's come out this morning. and in the last couple of days, and it's Aston Villa expressing their interest in signing Crystal Palace and France international Jean-Philippe Mateta, while the Eagles, obviously Crystal Palace themselves, are exploring a move for Villa's Ivory Coast international Evan Goussand. Crystal Palace are losing everybody. They're losing Glasner. Glasner's been very open about it. They've obviously just lost Mark Gay to Man City. They lost Elise a few years ago. They lost Eze in the summer. Everyone seems to be leaving left, right, and centre. And apparently, Jean-Philippe Mateta has also expressed an interest in signing for Villa this month, if it's possible. I just feel sorry for Crystal Palace fans at the moment. It's after their FA Cup win, their Community Shield win, no doubt, best summer of their life, best season of their life. I'm sure a lot of Palace fans will say they'll take what's happening now because of what happened beforehand, but it's not a great situation to be in as a Crystal Palace fan with your star striker, Jean-Philippe Mateta, who's had a mixed season, admittedly, a mixed season so far, potentially leaving in January, halfway through the winter. That is according to The Athletic, by the way, so very, very, very reliable. And according to Sky Sports, Villa also stepping up their efforts to sign Roma striker Tammy Abraham on loan at Besiktas. So apparently the Aston Villa officials went to watch him on Monday in Istanbul. But a problem at the moment is that Roma don't have a recall clause and Besiktas have an option, a conditional obligation to buy. So that might depend on how high they finish in the league. So if they finish in a certain position or qualify for European football, Champions League football, that fee, that loan becomes permanent. So Aston Villa will probably have to pay a fair amount to bring Tammy Abraham back because they'll have to be able to sort out fees with Besiktas, with Roma to make the deal happen. So it could be a tricky one for Aston Villa. Do keep an eye on it, obviously, with about 12, 13 days left to go in the January transfer window. That one is still up for debate. And then continuing with Aston Villa, as I said, there's plenty of Aston Villa stuff. Leon Bailey's loan spell at Roma has been cut short with a 28-year-old Jamaica winger, returning to Aston Villa. That's according to Sky Sports Italy. So Leon Bailey coming back to the Premier League. And Inter Milan are also exploring a move for Aston Villa goalkeeper Emi Martinez, 33. Obviously 33-year-old, but the Argentina international would have to accept a wage cut to sign next summer. When I think about Aston Villa goalkeepers, the only thing I think about at the moment is Unai Emery going Marco Bizot a lot during the interviews in September when Emi Martinez almost joined United, asked to leave, but didn't get the move on deadline day. But Aston Villa goalkeeper Emi Martinez, according to Sky Sports, reportedly of interest to Inter Milan. And after Inter Milan's 3-1 loss against Arsenal last night in the Champions League, maybe they need a new goalkeeper. Maybe they need someone with experience. And as we all know, when Premier League players head over to Italy, they tend to have a very, very good end to their career or very good revival of their career. You can see Scott McTominay, Rasmus Højlund, Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, Henrik Mkhitaryan, Matteo Darmian, even Ashley Young a few years ago going there to Inter Milan and having a fantastic time at Inter Milan. It seems to be a move from England to Italy that works for a lot of players. Maybe that worked for Emi Martinez because his stocks, they're taking a bit of a dive recently, even though Aston Villa obviously third in the Premier League, joint points with City. We'll see what happens there. And then elsewhere in the Premier League, Bournemouth are planning to resist any bids for Marcos Senesi this month, with Chelsea, Juventus, and Barcelona among the clubs who have shortlisted him as a possible target. Now, he is out of contract in the summer. So possibly the club lining up to sign him, maybe lining up, if they can't get him in January, pay a small fee to get him in January. They'll see if they can line up a possibility of a pre-contract agreement to then sign in the summer. Juventus are the ones who have been mostly closely linked, but we all know Chelsea need a centre-back. They're signing, it seems like they will be signing Jeremy Jacquet. The deals are ongoing with that. Talks are ongoing with the possibility that Jacquet will sign for Chelsea, and then be loaned back to Rennes towards the end of the season. But Chelsea fans are also saying, I've seen Matisse saying online, they need a centre-back now. They want a centre-back now. They've been linked with multiple players. So we'll see potentially, maybe Chelsea will offer Bournemouth enough money that they can't refuse it for a player who will be out of contract in just a few months, like Mark Gay with Man City. Mark Gay going to Man City, Crystal Palace felt like they couldn't refuse the 20 to 30 million pounds they'd get in January for a player that they would get for nothing in just a few months' time. But do keep an eye on Senesi's future. He's a great centre-back, 28 years old, in his prime. All the big clubs want him. And finally, Coventry boss and obviously Chelsea legend Frank Lampard, not Thomas Frank. Frank Lampard is a likely contender to replace Oliver Glasner as Crystal Palace manager, with the club also interested in Getafe's Jose Borrallas, might have butchered his name, and the Rayo Vallecano manager Ingo Perez, according to TalkSport. Frank Lampard, obviously, his Coventry team are absolutely flying. Feels like no matter what, Frank Lampard's going to be back in the Premier League next summer, be it with Coventry or be it with Crystal Palace, because there are 5 or 6 Premier League clubs that are going to be looking for a new manager in the summer. You've got Marco Silva possibly leaving Fulham, end of his contract. Andoni Iraola possibly leaving Bournemouth. Oliver Glasner definitely leaving. Manchester United obviously will be searching for a new manager. Don't think Frank Lampard will quite hit that bracket. Pep Guardiola's future at Manchester City. He might be leaving this summer, might be next summer. They might still be looking for a manager. Obviously, Enzo Maresca has been very closely linked to Man City since he left Chelsea a couple of weeks ago. Mad to think that was only 3 weeks ago that Enzo Maresca left Chelsea. A lot's happened in January so far. And obviously, I am here. My name is Dylan to cover it every single weekday on DR Sports. Let you know all of the latest about what's going on. Apart from that, I will see you guys tomorrow or on Live at 5 later today. Cheers.